Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's turned into a beautiful day. It was rainy all day, and now the sun is shining. So we're glad that you have chosen to be here. This is our last Wellness Wednesday that we're hosting for this year. I'm sure we'll pick it up again next year at some point. We welcome today Vanya, who is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator at South Riverdale Community Health Center. She works primarily with kids, so 0 to 18 years, and people living with diabetes. Yeah, we'll be talking about nutrition and family nutrition and how to convince some more intuitive eating from kids who might be particularly picky. So yes, Vanya, thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me here tonight as part of your Wellness Wednesday workshops. And thank you for the kind introduction. So today I will be talking about family nutrition and picky eating. As that was the topic that is of interest. And thank you for everyone filling out the Google form to let me know your interest and what you'd like to learn about and some expectations as well. So I'll just go to the next slide. Okay, so here's an outline, or you can say a list of topics that we'll talk about. So I will be talking about picky eating, first of all, and really I'm basing my talk on Ellen Satter's division of responsibility, which is the gold standard for family feeding practices, and then go into the impact of parents' feeding practices, how children learn to eat new food, as that is something that most of you had concerns about, some helpful tips for picky eating, some ways to engage your child in the kitchen, especially appropriate skills in the kitchen according to age, and also be going through tips to make meal times enjoyable. And then lastly, we'll have Q&A where there's an opportunity. If you have any questions, feel free to ask as well at that time. And feel free, I do like to keep my presentations, like the informal. So feel free if you want to ask a question in the chat box, and then maybe at the end we can address it. My multitasking may not be the best, so someone can let me know as well too if it's appropriate to address the question right away. All right, so as for all parents, most parents feel it's their responsibility to get their children to eat a large variety of foods, vegetables included, so that their child will grow well. And a lot of times I hear this a lot of times from parents as well, that like most may also feel this sense of maybe personal failure when their children only want to eat certain foods like chicken nuggets or pizza. So helping picky eaters enjoy a wide variety of foods can sometimes quickly turn into a frustrating process for parents and a stressful one for children. So today I'll be sharing some tips that can help your picky eaters expand their palate while keeping mealtime stress to a minimum, basing it on Ellen Satter's division of responsibility. So as you may know already, picky eating is very common in childhood. The term picky eater describes a child who rejects several foods, only enjoys a short list of foods, or has an irregular and erratic appetite. These are all pretty normal, typical picky eating behaviors. And if dealt in a positive and productive way, they last usually a short period of time. And for example, days or weeks, and it will pass eventually. So for starters, it can be helpful to know that children can be picky with foods for a variety of reasons. So this includes their age, genetics, personality, as well as the culture they grow up in and the feeding approaches used by their parents. Some children may also become picky eaters due to medical issues, chewing or swallowing difficulties. Others have sensory difficulties, which can cause certain tastes or textures to feel maybe too intense or not intense enough, influencing what they choose to eat and avoid. So many children actually outgrow their picky eating behavior as they get older. Parents can help their children become less picky around foods by changing the feeding approach they use. What's important for all parents is to realize that typical picky eating can easily escalate into extreme picky eating if handled in a dysfunctional way, which unfortunately happens often with the most well-meaning parents. And so I was just wondering, has anyone heard of Ellen Satter's division of responsibility in feeding before? Like you can just say yes, no. I see some shakes and head, yes, no. Oh, I do have the chat open. Okay. Um, all right. And this is applicable to all children, yes. And I see maybe a 50-50 split on knowing it or not knowing it. So it is the gold standard for healthy family nutrition practice created by Ellen Sider, who is a dietitian and family therapist. The model focuses on children having the natural ability while eating. They eat as much as they need. They grow in the way that is right for them, and they learn to eat the food their parents eat. So step by step throughout their growing up years, they build on their natural ability and become eating competent, which I will talk about. And I will go through what this means. So parents let their children learn and grow with eating while they follow the division of responsibility in feeding. So 1 second before. Oh, whoops. Okay, went ahead of myself. So here's this matching activity. And I wanted to go through this and ask you all to match this. So let me just explain really quickly. So in the division of responsibility, parents have a role to play in feeding and children have their role in feeding. So in this activity, I want you to guess which person is responsible for what role. So for example, who is responsible for deciding how much a child eats? Who decides what is served on the meal table? So I'm just gonna go across the when, how much, what, where, and whether in this order. So you can say it out loud or in the chat. Does anyone know who's responsible for when your child eats? Like, for example, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Any guesses?
I would guess the parent.
Yes, parent. Someone said parent in the chat as well. So yes, parents are responsible for when your child eats. So you provide, your regular meals and snacks, and not let children have food or beverages except for water between meal and snack times. Okay, so how about the how much? Who decides how much a child eats? A parent or child? You can also say it out or in the chat. Child. All right. So yes, it is the child who decides how much to eat. So they will eat the amount that they need. They will learn to eat their food as their parents eat. They will grow predictably and they will learn to behave well at meal times. And then how about the what? Who decides what is served at the meal table? Is it parent? Is it child? I see parents, yes. Yes, exactly. So the parents are responsible for the what. So they choose and prepare the food. They consider and are considerate of children's lack of food experience without catering to likes and dislikes. How about the where? I know with pandemic, it's all at home. And so who is responsible for the where your child eats? Is it the parent or the child? Parent. I see some responses for that. Yes, so parents decide where your child eats. And so in non-pandemic times, it can be, a picnic, can be extended family's home, a park, really at your home. And so the parent decides where. And they also are responsible for making meal times pleasant. And so they show children, by example, how to behave at family meal times, and they let children grow up to get the bodies that are right for them. And lastly, who is responsible for the whether the child eats or not? Who is responsible for that? Parent or child? I see child. Yes. Okay. So yes, it is your children who decide whether they eat or not. And so this just kind of gives you a clearer just format in terms of the respective roles in the division of responsibility. And when these roles are followed, picky eating behaviors will be minimized. So the division of responsibility is a responsive approach to feeding developed by Alan Sutter. And research does show this feeding approach links to a lower likelihood of picky eating. And so again, parents' responsibilities are what foods are offered, when foods are offered, where food is offered with no distractions, and your child's responsibilities is to decide how much they eat, how many servings, for example, and if they will eat or not. So they may choose not to eat, and that is their decision. Okay, so from the division of responsibility model, I would say caregivers find trusting your child to eat the most difficult one. So remember, your child wants to eat, and he wants to eat, or he wants to grow up to eat the food that you eat. They're always trying to be like you. Beyond doing your part with structured sit-down family meals and snacks, you don't have to do anything to get it to happen. Just be there and enjoy your food. Keep in mind that grown-up food is all new to your child, and he or she, they have to learn. For them, it is like any other skill, such as reading or bike riding. He learns or she learns bit by bit at their own pace because they want to, not because it is your idea as a parent. They will eat like a child some days, a lot, other days not so much. Maybe they only eat one or two foods and not everything at a meal. And you probably are notice that right now. So when they eat one day, certain food, they might ignore the same food on another day. And that is completely okay. So don't try to get them to eat less than what they want. Such controlling tactics backfire. Instead, relax, enjoy your own meal, and teach your child to behave nicely at mealtime sooner or later. And so for some kids, it can be much later. They will eat almost everything you eat. And with this model, this makes a parent's life much easier and helps them take some of the stress out of meal planning and preparation. Children also come to learn that there won't be any pressure from their parents regarding how much of each food to eat. These expectations helps children feel more relaxed at meal times. So along similar lines, I know that I had mentioned intuitive eating with Karen. There is something called that, intuitive eating. And it is a flexible eating style that focuses on trusting and usually following physical hunger and satiety or fullness cues to guide when to eat and how much to eat. It's associated with positive physical and psychological like outcomes. So intuitive eating aligns with the division of responsibility where it based on trust and allows children to build autonomy. And so you can think of it as, children are following their hunger and fullness cues. So think about the how much in terms of their responsibility to eat. So I just want to spend some time on the next few slides to talk about parents' roles and feeding. Um, so strict parental controls on eating can contribute to preferences for energy-dense foods, limit acceptance to other foods, and alter sensitivity to internal hunger and fullness cues, and ultimately disrupting the child's ability to self-regulate energy intake and the amount of food eaten. So this may result in problematic eating behaviors that persist in adulthood. So the following examples illustrate how it may occur. So for example, pressuring to eat can lead to restrained eating and emotional eating, and may actually prevent their ability to sense their hunger and fullness. So encouraging children to eat more of a certain food can increase their dislike for that food. Offering palatable foods such as rewards or pairing them with positive attention, such as making a big deal out of going to get ice cream, increases liking of those foods. Restricting food or types of food or even labeling foods as good or bad can lead to an increased desire to obtain and eat forbidden quote unquote foods, resulting in excessive consumption when food is available. And they may eat in the absence of hunger and emotional eating, especially when highly palatable foods are restricted. And most often, well-intentioned parents or caregivers, they control food choices and intake, hoping to promote health, flexibility, and growth. This often backfires, leading to mealtime struggles. And so if the struggle continues, no matter what the underlying cause is, there's more likelihood that it can lead to disordered eating down the road. And this may or may not be surprising to some of you, or maybe you've heard of some of this, but I will go through a bit more in the following slides. So in terms of restriction, parents are more likely to restrict a child's food intake if they perceive, their child as overweight or at risk of becoming so, or if themselves have a history of dieting or emotional eating. Restriction in order to promote moderation has been shown to have the opposite effect, promoting overeating in response to the presence of palatable previously restricted foods without improving dietary intake. So I know this is an old study, but in 2003, there's a study that followed 182 girls from ages 5 to 9 who experienced high levels of food restriction by their mothers, who were more likely to eat when they were feeling not hungry than girls who had low levels of restriction. So this was true regardless of whether the girls were overweight or not. So worries about poor growth and nutrient deficiencies are two reasons why parents may pressure their children to eat certain foods. So although both are valid worries, pressuring a child to eat rarely works. And so in fact, trying to coerce or pressure your child to eat their broccoli may actually cause your child to dislike this vegetable, not want to eat it, or no longer to actually want to give it a try. So what can parents do? So first, try to remind yourself that healthy children aren't likely to let themselves, go hungry or starve. Your child may eat a lot one day and seemingly maybe very little on another. So for example, if they're feeling sick, they may be eating less. But for example, if they're out and they had a lot of activities outdoors, they may be eating more. And this is absolutely normal. So as long as your child's growth is consistent, it is normal for them. Even if it is above the 85th or 95th percentile, cutoff points defined by policymakers. Here I have the WHO growth charts for Canada. There is a problem if they are growing faster than that is right for them. So if they suddenly go up on the growth curve, that is a red flag. But even then, dieting is really not an answer to, try and change your child's diet and pressuring them to eat. So think through the division of responsibility in feeding when you have these thoughts of wanting maybe to control, what your child is eating. So think about these questions. So are you doing your jobs with feeding and letting your child do their job with eating? Are you restricting your child or trying to get them to eat maybe more quote unquote low slimming foods? Can you stop interfering with what and how much she eats and instead provide her with regular meals and snacks? And at those times, let them eat what and as much as they want from what you provide. And at first, they will likely eat more than usual, but then they will settle. But then their eating will settle down, and they will eat like other children. A lot sometimes, not so much in other times. Only time will tell whether a child's weight remains the same in the growth chart, or maybe it drifts downwards to follow a lower curve. This is a normal weight for them, and you must accept it. Feel good about the body they have and let them do the same. So if you try to slim them down, or if your child tries to slim themselves down, the risk is very high that they will get fatter, not thinner, and feel miserable about their weight. So remember, your children have a natural way of growing that is right for them. They know how much to eat. They know, or they know how much they need to eat to grow in that way. They are born in this wonderful package, and everything in balance. They're growing, eating, and their activity. You don't need to worry about them growing normally. It will happen. You just have to maintain a division of responsibility in feeding and provide safe space for physical activity. And you may know this already. Your child's body size and shape is about genetics. And your child's body shape and size are mostly inherited. So they will resemble you in respect to being big, small, or in between. Their height and weight are normal for them. And even if, again, they plot on the 97th or below the 3rd percentile, there can be a problem when there is a rapid shift or a rapid decrease on the growth chart. If this does happen or you notice it yourself, do consult a health professional like your doctor or a dietitian or health professional that understands feeding dynamics to rule out health, feeding, and parenting concerns. A point I do want to make as well is that unusually large or small children need good social skills. So don't try to change your child's size or shape. Again, it will backfire. Instead, concentrate on teaching your child to cope. Help them develop, good character, common sense, effective ways of responding to their feelings, problem-solving skills, and their ability to get along with others. And I know Karen had actually mentioned that someone spoke about body image, but I'll just, excuse me, touch upon it real briefly. So in today's culture, weight can be a sensitive subject, especially for children and teenagers. The desire to be thin is reaching school-age children. Girls as young as 6 years old may express concerns about their body image and gaining weight. And so you might be wondering, like, how, as a parent, do I express my concerns about weight to my child? And the answer is you shouldn't. So, as a parent, your job is to model healthy behavior. And that means you should also avoid conversations centered on your own weight, size, or body appearance or image. That goes for anyone else's weight or body size, whether it is a family member, celebrity, a stranger on the street. So when you express your thoughts about your own weight or another's weight or appearance, you're sending a message to your child that weight and appearance takes a high priority. So your child is still growing and learning in all areas of life. They want to become like you. As soon as you make a judgment on yourself or others about weight, they perceive this as, oh, my mommy and daddy thinks this is important. I need to watch out for my weight too, because my mom or dad is. So your child's weight or appearance is not their value, but everything else is, including their development, ability to cope, being resilient, and their character. And you also may heard of this already, time and time again. But if there is only one thing that you remember from tonight's session, this is the most important. This is parent modeling is the most important way on how to teach your children about food and eating. Feeding is parenting. Just want to stress on this, and it is the most powerful impact on how your child learns to eat. Parents who want their children to eat healthfully can benefit by focusing on being good role models. So what a parent does behaviorally is more important than anything they can ever say. So some parents might have their own challenges in their own relationship with food, but that doesn't mean you cannot be a model to healthy eating. The parent can be there intellectually before they're there behaviorally. When a parent says something like, I don't want to break my kid, sometimes having a goal based on another person is very powerful. And from the Google form, there was one question about what if, my partner doesn't really, want to follow the same thing, or your views are very different, or if my partner is very picky and eats very little vegetables, how can you balance this when it comes to setting a good example for children? So I would suggest you may want to have a further conversation with your partner. And some of the questions I would say to talk about is maybe talk about or describe one positive childhood memory about food, for example. Another question to discuss is describe one less positive or negative childhood memory about food. And I think this one is the most important question here. Describe the one most important thing that you want your child to learn about food. So you can develop your own family feeding practices and culture and goals that you would like for your family. And so you might be thinking, how does this look like practically? So I will touch upon it in the following slides as well. So again, just want to stress that the number one thing that parents can do when feeding their children is to actually not say anything. So once the food is in front of your children, it's no longer the parents or anyone's role or business how much or whether your child eats. That part is solely your child's responsibility, and they need to own it. So what does a neutral food environment look like? And some we briefly touched on. So this involves, choosing to use language about food and your body that isn't shaming or degrading. Talking about food without using polarizing terms such as good or bad. Not discussing diets or weight loss when talking to your children about food and their bodies, minimizing nonverbal messages or gestures that might communicate negative messages about food, mealtime setting that helps your child comfortable to explore food, and then ensuring that your children don't feel shame about their food choices or portions. So sometimes the fears and anxieties as parents you might have around food may be coupled with external pressures to raise healthy kids. And this might influence you to, micromanage how your child eats. So I would say try not to. Remaining neutral around food can be a solid foundational point from which your kids can grow into confident and competent eaters who enjoy food and respect their bodies. So this is the next interactive kind of discussion. Feel free to write it in the chat or unmute yourself. I just wanted to have a discussion about the language around food because this one is really important. I find words are powerful and have a significant impact. I want you to think about maybe certain phrases your child has said and share it here. How did you respond to the situation? The point here is that we want to, foster neutral language around food by discussing, what has worked for you. So does anyone have anything or examples of what your child says during meal times?
Often there's just a lot of whining, like but he doesn't want to eat what's on the plate because it's not something he likes or not something he knows. We've basically taken into like, you're not allowed to have an opinion about food unless you've tried it. So you have to try it. You have to try everything. And if you've tried it and chosen not to like it, then that's a choice, but you don't just get to whine about something that you can't have an opinion on yet.
Yeah, that's definitely a great one to have because you're setting also the rules. As parents, as you are the one who's setting what should be happening and the rules that you make in this household, in your household. So yeah, that's definitely a great one. Any other examples that you think?
I just have a point. My daughter's 12 now, and she's a very, very, very picky eater. For example, they have a snack program at the school, which is fruits and vegetables and usually some dairy carbs. And she never eats anything from there because she does not eat fruit or vegetables. So when we are, have a meal, all she does is whine about it, complain, and won't cry about that we're not making anything she likes, and she'll pick at it a bit and eat a little tiny bit. And so I think she fills up on crackers the whole day, and that's basically all she eats. So it's just hard to like when you get advice like this where, oh, you should just present them food and show them you're eating it, because that doesn't happen. She's 12 and it has never happened in her entire life. She has never eaten anything except a carb or meat. So like, unless we force her to and say, you're not leaving the table until you eat this, because it's got to that point where she's just like eating carbs all the time.
Yes, I have also experienced that with the clients that I work with, and I will touch upon that. I have an answer to that, and it's coming in my slides.
Okay.
Yes, because she's old enough, and it's about having a conversation with her about that. I will definitely be touching upon that.
Well, we've gone to see a nutritionist who basically told her this, but it doesn't really help because she knows, but she won't do it. she won't eat anything that she doesn't like. So it's
Okay.
not necessary. It's difficult.
Okay. Yeah, I also we'll be talking about different ways to incorporate vegetables, and also tips on how to approach vegetables in a different way as well. Yet it is coming. And I see in the chat, I'll just read it out loud. I think I read Alan Sider's book when I was pregnant, or at least a book with similar messages. But 6 years later, my family makes fun of me for having the world's pickiest eater despite my best efforts to follow these principles. My kids won't try foods. My sister's kids will, but they won't touch it. And I'm determined to make dinner a good environment, so I don't want to fight it. And so maybe, yeah, the language around this, or the words that is used, is that they're all saying, is it everyone is picky? Like, is that the issue? Like they're saying, oh, I'm a picky eater, he's a picky eater. Is that what is happening? Because I also have a tip for this as well, and it's coming actually at the very end of the PowerPoint. And so I will definitely also address this in terms of family talking about being picky eaters and labeling. I will talk about.
Yeah. So I've been determined not to label. This is like among adults. Because I feel like I'm losing faith in the system of waiting and not negotiating and letting them have control, because I didn't, because it's been 6 years and now I have 2 really picky children. And I like keep trying to tell, I'm like, no, but it should work. It should work. Like I've given them freedom and I have a nice dinner time, and I don't like say you have to eat 3 bites of this or you have to try this, but as a result, our meals have just become like the 5 things the kids will eat, because I don't want to be in a position where I'm trying to resist fighting. And while there is a list of foods and like they are healthy and growing and it's fine, like it's not a medical problem, but it's certainly not a situation where we're adaptable and can like go to people's, like they understand that they can't ask for new food, but they'll just sit there and like not eat, which is fine. I guess that's part of these principles, but I guess I'm just like, I have a 6-year-old and I'm like, it hasn't kicked in yet. Like I was fine when she was 2 or when she was 3 or when she was 4. And now I'm like, we're still on 2 vegetables. 5 meals, and like they understand socially they can't ask, or socially they just eat what they want, or they don't make a big deal, or like we don't have to argue about bites. But like, do I wait till they're 18 and just keep having faith, or like do I need to change strategies of like, okay, now you actually have to try the foods, which I don't know how to do. Like they don't do that.
Okay. It may be questions to ask in terms of what I will talk about this in terms of like you're providing a variety of foods and they may say no to a certain food and they do eat another certain food they will like. It's a conversation to have with them. And you may have asked them as well. I do talk about this in the later slides, like just what do you not like about the food? How can I make the food tastier? And so having conversations with them, I have some more questions to address that, because when they're 6, when they're 12, when they're 9, they're old enough to have a conversation with you, and they're able to, obviously express what they like and not like. And with food, there might be something that they just might not like, and we don't know, because maybe they don't know how to express it or say it. So as parents, we can ask them in different ways of what exactly is maybe not helping, and why they're not liking maybe a certain texture, flavor, or the taste as well. So I have a list of questions that I will have in the later slides to help you with communicating, talking to your children about that. And so, yes, be on the watch for those slides. It is coming. And so there's another comment in the chat box. It says, also have a 12-year-old loading on carbs and or cheese, will eat fruits, but the issue is same foods all the time, eating only grilled cheese sandwich for a few years, and now only pizza. Meal planning is hell. Okay. I will, yes, talk about this. I think it's similarly where learning how to engage children in the kitchen and also having a conversation about it, because again, at 12 years, they are old enough to express and share why they like certain foods, why they do not like a certain foods. So I will address this later on, definitely. All right. I'll just move on to our next slide. Okay, this one, how children learn to eat new food. And this was a very common question and also in my practice as well. So first of all, your child is learning to eat what you eat. So for a young child, like for example, toddler, all foods are new, even those that are very familiar to parents. Eating a variety of food is a skill that children learn gradually. I like to use the analogy of learning math. In math, we often have to keep practicing to learn the basics of, say, addition or subtraction. So likewise, with food, your child needs to practice with food as well. So research says it takes about 15 to 20 times of exposure of a certain food cooked in different ways with different flavors before your child decides to like it or not. So with learning new foods, we need to understand how children learn. So children, they look, touch, taste, smell, and take in and out of their mouths. They watch parents eat. If parents eat and enjoy it, they assume someday I'll eat like that too. And even after your child eats the food, they won't eat it every time. They're unlikely to eat some of everything of the meal, but only one or two foods. Let them have seconds or thirds on the foods that they enjoy, even if they ignore the rest. Some may find like the taste and textures challenging. For example, Brussels sprouts or oysters. And as you may all know already, they quickly learn to eat high fat and or high sugar foods. Children do one trial, learning with cookies and French fries. But be considerate without catering in meal planning. And you may have heard of this one already. Pair familiar with unfamiliar foods, eaten with the not yet eaten. So you may have to include the not yet eaten food 15 or 20 or dozens of times in as many meals. And what I mean by that is also cooked in different methods like baking, steaming, barbecuing, grilling, and different herbs, spices, different textures, mashed, braised, etc. And so I think we had, someone had mentioned this, like it's taking a long time, 6 years. So your child learning can take months or even years. And they will eat. And so for your child's behavior, take no thank you for an answer, but do not pressure, bribe, or cheerlead. Enthuse your child saying it's healthy, because they don't understand what healthy means actually until maybe about the age of 12. Okay, so what does this mean? Raising a healthy child who is a joy to feed. So as parents, maintain the quality of your feeding relationship rather than worrying about what or how much your child eats. Focus on how you feed and how your child feels and behaves at meal times, not on what your child eats. Your child will eat and grow well, and sooner or later he will eat or she will eat to learn almost everything you eat. And so what I mean by the competent, earlier, how does a child who is eating well and has a positive relationship look like? So your child is a competent eater when he feels good about eating. They enjoy food and joins in happily with family meals and snacks. They enjoy meals and behaves nicely at meal times. They feel good about being included in meal times and does their part in making mealtime pleasant. They don't make a fuss. They pick and choose from food that as parents you make available. They're okay with being offered food that they have never seen before. They say yes, please, or no, thank you. They ignore food that they do not want, and also sneaks up on new food and learns to like it. Eventually, they will learn to eat almost everything you do. And again, they determine how much to eat. Only they know how much to eat, trusting them as much as he needs to grow consistently and develop the body that nature intended for them. And so you might be thinking, oh, this is really hard. This is not possible. And again, as I said earlier, is that it takes time, years, in fact. And so your child learns eating skills step by step. So remember when your child was 8 to 15 months old, they were, likely sitting up with your family and finger feeding soft table food. And so as they get older, they gradually learn to enjoy more and more food that you enjoy. They get less messy. They manage the mechanics of eating more and more and in more grown-up ways. So in late school age and high school, they gradually learn to manage food so that they can feed themselves when they leave home. So what you're doing is that you're raising your child to do well in a lifetime of eating. So again, be consistent with structure, keep your nerve about what and how much your eats, trust your child to eat, move, and grow in the way that is right for them. So here's more actually a comprehensive list of some tips to help your child become less picky around food. So again, I emphasize the first one, establish a feeding schedule. Keep the eating environment free of distractions. So keep phones, tablets, toys, books away from the meal table. Enjoy each other's company and talk about anything but food. Offer new foods repeatedly. Keep meals short. So experts suggest that meals should take maybe around, on average, 20 to 30 minutes. So after that time, it's okay for parents to put away food until the next eating opportunity. So if your child appears disinterested in their meal, they're not eating, or they ask to leave the table during a meal, it might be because were not truly hungry for that meal. So number 5, we did already talk about, avoid labeling foods as good or bad. So when you're helping your child develop a healthy relationship with food, no foods should be off limits. So all foods fit. So certain foods are obviously richer in vitamins and minerals and nutrients than others. However, labeling the nutrient poor foods as bad or off limits can result in your child, craving them even more. Developing a good versus bad mentality when it comes to food can also cause your child to develop an unhealthy relationship with foods. Next one is use creativity when presenting meals. So sometimes presenting a meal or food in a new context is all it takes to motivate picky eaters to give it a try. So for examples, dips. So children love dipping foods. So try offering fruits or vegetables together with a dip. There can be homemade trail mix. That is also one where you can have your child help you mix it. Another example is fruit or vegetable kebabs. And they can also help you make that. Frozen fruit. Some children may prefer the texture and temperature of frozen fruit over that of fresh fruits. Another example you may have tried or heard is smoothies. It can be an appealing way for your child to eat leafy greens like spinach or kale. And if you have leftover, for example, smoothies, you can try and make it into popsicles. Another idea is self-assembled meals. Getting your child to assemble their meal themselves can be more interesting for them to eat. For example, letting them choose their favorite toppings to a homemade pizza, or toppings for their like yogurt. Avoid using food as punishment or reward. Tactics that use food either as punishment or reward will teach your picky eaters that to eat either to please you. Avoid punishment or earn a reward. So learning to eat as a result of these external motivations may cause your child to lose touch with their internal motivation to eat. So by this, I mean they might lose touch with their internal signals of hunger and fullness. Children that lose their natural ability to eat when hungry and stop eating when full risk growing up into adults that struggle with this too. And so for this reason, I encourage parents to avoid the following tactics when feeding children. So praise. When you're clapping or cheering when your child tries a new food, or telling your child that you're so proud of them for eating all of their vegetables. Their shame or guilt. So for example, saying something like, be a good boy and take a bite for mommy, or you asked me to make pasta, now eat it. Next one is bribes. For example, telling your child that they can take 2 more bites of their dinner before they can get their dessert. Distraction, for example, using television or iPad to entertain your child while they eat. This also applies to parents entertaining their child through other means to eat more, such as, here comes the plane, open your mouth wide. And also threats, force feeding, or not allowing your child to leave the table until they take a certain amount of bites of food. And lastly, pressure. For example, forcing your child to touch, lick, or play with a food they don't want to touch or eat. Trying to get your child to eat by telling them that this food is good for you, or that you need it to grow big and strong, can come off as pressure. And so with these, unfortunately, they backfire. And I would say I would try to avoid these. And then the next one here, number 8, is involve your child in food decisions. You can ask them what they would like to try at meals. And then last one here is serve meals family style. So have your child scoop or serve their own plate or bowl. You're giving them autonomy to choose how much they eat. For example, if the meal is pasta, meatballs, and roasted vegetables, have them serve themselves. If this is not possible, like they can't serve themselves, ask your child how much would they like to have. For example, how many meatballs would you like? And if they like seconds, allow them to have it. And so here are some
Sorry,
more.
Vanya,
Yes,
do you mind if I ask a question?
sure. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry there. Just on the topic of, so thank you for the guidelines so far. So for example, there's about 3 or 4 points my husband and I are just saying that, we're not approaching things the same way. And so there's room for adjustment there. One of them is, so for example, we'll make, I'll make some food, and then I might have something that I know she really likes, like pilaf, which is like a rice dish my mom makes. She's coming down. And my question is, during that case, if I just let her eat whatever she wants at the table, she's probably just going to eat the pilaf. She's not going to eat the other food because that's what she really loves. So does that mean that I shouldn't offer that in the first place? Because otherwise I'm like, hey dude, like you can't have 3 servings of it. And then the other is about good and bad foods. Like we have, and it could be during the pandemic, but you get a treat every day. And if they don't behave, then they lose their treat. So clearly that's not the right thing to do, but I'm just kind of checking that out with you, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So if rice pilaf is what they like to eat, that's okay. You may be serving that food as the familiar food that that they're going to eat, and at the same time you may be serving a food that they are maybe more unfamiliar, and that's okay. If they eat more servings of that, that's okay too. And when you keep offering the familiar food with other foods, the how do you call it, the when you're, it's not that they will get sick of it, is that the more you offer it, they know that they will get it, and they feel that, oh, my mommy is going to give me that food every so often, and the newness kind of comes off. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like the newness of the food comes off. Like if they know that you keep serving rice pilaf every so often, they know, okay, well, mommy knows what I like, and she will give me what I like every so often. And then they may be willing to try, other foods that you offer at the meal table. And the newness is a research based as well. When children see that they are being offered foods continuously, like the same foods that they like, the newness wears off, and they won't seek or want it or crave it as much. And so as long as you keep it, on the menu, on your family meal tables, that's totally fine. If they eat more of it initially, that's okay too. The newness again wears off. And then also the good and bad foods. Try not to reward children with food, because again, they're going to think that this food is prized, and that this food is more value than other foods. For example, it could be even chicken or fish if your family eats animal-based food. So we don't want children to have different, you can say, ranking or priority or importance of food. So we want all foods to be equal and they all fit. So having ice cream as a dessert, that's okay, but we don't want that to be more important than any other foods. So we want to kind of level the playing ground or field of foods, that all foods fit, that able to have those foods. Does that help or make sense?
It does, and maybe we can take it offline because I don't want to dominate the Q&A, but it just I guess then in that case, do I not offer treats in the first place, or do I make them available for them to get whenever they want? Like when you're saying we're in charge of what they eat, then do I just bring out a treat once a day as their snack?
Yeah, so you can definitely bring the treats as a snack every day. It could be a variety of the different treats or snacks that you have. This kind of gives them the security that they know that, oh, my parents will give me what I like. And again, if it's served every day and they know that they can have as much of it as possible in that snack time, the newness again wears off, and they'll gradually eat less of it. And so again, newness wears off. So yes, do provide the treats that you normally provide, say at snack time.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right. And so this next slide here are some practical ways to really foster healthy eating habits with your children, by teaching them, to shop and cook. And I think on the Google form, some of you do have mentioned this, that, you try and engage your children in gardening. grocery shopping, cooking, preparing foods. So starting from a young age, inspiring children to shop, cook, and prepare food can set them up for a lifetime of healthy eating. A great way to teach children about food is to let them shop and cook with you. I know with the pandemic, it is a little harder. Hopefully when things get better, you'll be able to do so. Or you might be thinking, oh, I don't have time for this. It takes double the time when I bring my children. Maybe think of bringing your children to the grocery store as a learning opportunity. Ask them what vegetables they would like to try and have them help you prepare it. It can be as simple as washing that vegetable. And in a recent IPSOS survey found that 38% of parents rarely or never let their child prepare a meal or snack. And it's a missed opportunity, but it can be easily fixed. So here are just 5 tips for cooking with children. So it's fun and rewarding to involve kids and your children in meal preparation, whether it's at breakfast, lunch, or dinner. First one is pick a recipe together. Children need to be part of the planning from the beginning, and it helps if they prepare something that they love to eat. And grocery shopping for that together. And the second one is incorporate learning. Build on lessons they learn in school, such as math, social studies, media literacy, spelling, science, reading. Younger children can practice fine motor skills like picking up the food. Third one is keep it fun. Imaginative play helps children get deeply involved. So make a theme night or turn your kitchen into a restaurant or reality cooking show. Number 4 is be a role model, as we had already emphasized before. So if you're excited, they will be too. Try a new food, describe the flavor, and be adventurous to inspire your children to do the same. And try and get other, siblings or members of the family involved. And the 5th one is be cool about the mess. So spills and accidental messes happen, and it's important to remain calm about little mishaps. Keep kitchen towels handy for cleaning up spills. So as you probably already know, kids are much more likely to eat what they make. So cooking at home is a great tip. To try, definitely, especially now during the pandemic. It's fun for them to eat their art creation. Cooking with your child or children helps reduce mealtime battles and boost their willingness to try foods. It's great for their self-confidence too. And I think there was one comment about the willingness to try foods in the form. So having them cook with you is definitely a great way to increase their interest in trying the food. Okay, so I don't think I will go through each of the age group here, but for each age group, there's certain, skills that is appropriate and safe for your child. So children develop cooking skills at different age. So introduce your kids to skills that they're able to do, match it with their age and abilities. So I know a very common barrier that some of you mentioned from the Google form is having enough time to engage your children in the kitchen. And then there were also some comments about worrying about safety of using knives or stoves. And you probably all know this already, is that when your children is helping you in the kitchen, you're always supervising. Families are very busy and have no time, and parents are, as you might be thinking, often thinking, oh, I just need to get the meal on the table, and if I have my child help, it will take longer. So I know time was a huge barrier. So I have 2 suggestions for that. The first one is start simple. So for example, it can be having your 8-year-old set the table, grabbing the napkins or knives, chopsticks, spoons, what have you at the meal table. And then gradually with time, they can add more tasks, such as carrying a salad bowl or plates to the table. And so also, or even without, pandemic, packing their own lunch. If your school doesn't provide lunch. And the second suggestion is, planning a day or time when you have, more time, such as on the weekends, for your child to help you prepare meals or cooking together, or even just exploring certain food. It can be a simple activity as a brown bag, having brown paper bags, and then putting in different fruits and vegetables and having them feel it and not, see what the fruit is or vegetable is, and then having them guess what it is. So it's more kind of like a game or activity, which you also heard of. And so here are the questions to ask for your children if you feel that they are picky with eating. And so when you ask these questions, they allow your child to look at their food differently and may help take the pressure off of everyone at the table. So instead of doing what might feel like instinctual and hovering over your child, making sure that, he eats something green, take the pressure off and get him talking. So this is the part where I said I would go through, how to kind of navigate through if they just refuse all the foods, they sit there and they maybe not try the foods. So get them talking. So the first one is, how can I make this food easier for you to eat? Or another question rephrased is there a way that I can make this yummier for you? Like, what do you think? And so at the age of, say, 12 or 9, they're able to tell you that. The second one is the kitchen will be closed after dinner. Are you sure you're done? So giving your child a heads up that the next eating opportunity is a while away. Or you can say, for easy reference, like after school or before you brush your teeth or at breakfast time tomorrow, allows them the opportunity to reevaluate whether or not they want to be done when they say, oh, I'm finished. And then you've observed that they only took maybe, 3 bites. So ask these questions. It's part of the parent's job to determine when meals and snacks are offered. So the feeding doesn't turn into a free-for-all, and that children learn self-regulation and regulating their appetite when it comes to hunger and fullness. If no warning or reference is given, children often hold out until their favorite snack is given, for example, or they complain of being hungry an hour after mealtime. So giving them a heads up, a warning of when the next mealtime is helpful. And the third one here is, would you like to have dessert with your meal tonight? And so by randomly offering treat foods alongside dinner, you not only put all foods on a level playing field, but you also take the desirability of treats down a few notches and eliminate the urgency to finish the meal quickly so that they can have a dessert. So this is kind of the question that we had talked about earlier. So you want to equal the playing field for all foods. So children tend to either rush through their meal or quote unquote save up for their dessert, eating less of their meal than they usually would. So serving dessert with dinner neutralizes foods, nutritious or not. So then all of a sudden, dessert isn't the reward only to be earned after eating those other quote unquote healthy or yucky foods in their perspective. So you might notice less requests for treats, less fixation on dessert foods, and maybe less picky eating habits and happier meal times overall. Number 4 is, how full is your tummy? Or how does your tummy feel? So if your child says that, oh, I'm done, instead of asking her to have 3 more bites, nurture her natural ability to eat intuitively by asking them, how their tummy feels. And a way to prompt is, how does your tummy feel? Just a little full, halfway full, or all the way full? Getting your child to think about their internal hunger and fullness cues at an early age and encouraging them to honor those cues will increase the chances of them in continuing to trust their body and eat intuitively later on. And then the fifth question here is, it's okay that you don't want to taste that food. Instead, how would you like to explore it? So again, it's not a good idea to pressure our children to eat particular food at meal times. It can actually make them more wary of it than they were before. And we did talk about, taking off pressure. Tell them, this is a very common phrase that I know many dietitians use who practice in the field of pediatrics, is that saying, it's okay that you don't eat this food. And then this follow-up question then kind of helps you move forward on, okay, then how would you then like to learn about this food? And then, some ways to explore foods is what we had talked about just earlier slides about like children learning, how children learn new food. So it can be touching, playing with it, feeling, smushing, stacking, licking, or smelling it, without being rude or disruptive. And so these are all positive steps toward eventually accepting a food. Next question here is, you don't have to eat it, but you do need to sit at the table. Mealtime is also about family time. What would you like to share about your day? So when we make eating, a battle of wills, between yourself and your children, the joy and connection of eating gets lost. Some parents may win the battle and feel good that their child eats in the way that they want them to eat, but deep down the child may be full of resentment, eating peas to please their parents and not because he enjoys eating them. It's important to set the timing boundary for meals and let your children know that everyone needs to come to the table for family time. And it's just as important to take that pressure off your child. So it's expectation that, that they are sitting with you. And by saying you don't have to eat it, just as I was saying earlier, the pressure is off. And then it's much more likely that your child will end up taking a few bites or more, up to your child. And then this next question here is, dinner is in 5 minutes. What do you need to do in order to feel ready to come sit at the table? So for example, finish, building a tower, run around for 5 minutes to get, wiggles out, take off your costume and put it away, etc. So young kids, like toddlers, don't often react well to abrupt transitions or requests to change activities too fast. That's why giving them a bit of a warning before a transition, let's say, going from playing to eating at the dinner table, works well. Also reminding them to finish what they are engaged in, whether it be, puzzle, Lego, TV watching, playing outside in the backyard, so that they don't feel panicked when they're asked to come to the table. And then this last question here is, it's okay, you don't have to like everything or a certain food, but great job for trying it. What part of it did you not like? So by noticing and even praising your child for being brave and trying a new food, you're giving him the confidence to continue exploring it, pressure-free. So note, this is quite different from praising your child for eating a food, which isn't the best idea. So this way you're praising the fact that they're being brave and adventuresome, not that he's eating a particular food. And then the leading on question next is, what part of it did you not like? Because it gets your child again to talk about what particular quality that was displeasing, which can give you a lot of information. Maybe it was color, maybe it was texture or mouthfeel. Perhaps it was too crunchy or too soft. That way, it's a conversation to have. So you might have also heard of this before. This is a question I get all the time. So for children who don't like eating vegetables, what is one way, for example, to have your child try more vegetables or eat them? You can transform them from maybe a boring to a fun name or renaming them. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but one example is Pack-a-Punch peas or Green Monster pea pods. And so this is one of the strategies that has worked before. And again, you're making food fun. Like children like to, have fun. And so by making vegetables fun, they may try it. And then here are some tips, 10 tips or ways to make vegetables yummier or tastier. Like for example, like first one is add them to smoothies. For example, like spinach in a smoothie won't change the taste, but will add a lot of nutrition. Others that go well is cucumber, kale, carrots, and beets. You can serve vegetables in a sauce form, add them to tomato sauce, marinara sauce, or homemade salsa. Serve frozen power peas before supper. A small bowl of frozen peas is not only fun to eat, but also makes a great pre-dinner nutrient-packed snack. You can also make them into a soup, for example, butternut squash, mushrooms, tomato, or broccoli soups are delicious ways to include more vegetables. Make a ribbon salad, like with zucchini or cucumber. Add cheese to them. Adding cheese makes food yummier, usually. For example, cheddar cheese to steamed broccoli or cauliflower, or even finely grating some Parmesan cheese and dip raw or steamed vegetables into it. Again, like dip that I mentioned before, you can also serve vegetables with fruit. So when you add some sweetness to vegetables, it takes away their natural bitter taste and makes them more palatable. For example, combining spinach with strawberries in a salad, or add tomatoes, peppers, and mango to a salsa, or try sprinkling dried cranberries into a sweet broccoli salad. So a note I do want to make here is that in terms of the bitterness, so infants, toddlers, young children, and even school-age children, they have actually more taste buds on their tongue. And so they're much more sensitive to the bitterness of vegetables. And that's why we use different herbs, spices, flavors, sweetness, even sourness, saltiness to cover up the bitterness. And so I definitely recommend adding lots of flavors and spices, and roasting them brings out the sweetness of vegetables. Like for example, roasting broccoli, so it decreases or masks, you can say, the bitterness of vegetables. Number 9 here is make them in like vegetables into fries or chips. You might have probably already tried this. Toss them in olive oil, a bit of salt, pepper. If your child, if we're talking about toddlers under 2, don't add salt or sugar. Only add it after 2 years of age, because again, they are very sensitive to salt and sugar at a young age, less than 2. And lastly here is spiralize them. So spiralized veggies, add them to regular pasta with sauce. Zucchini and carrot work great. And yes, someone did mention this point already. It's actually my last slide here before questions. So stop labeling your child as a picky eater. So what many parents don't realize is that the seemingly harmless act of labeling their child picky eater, whether directly to your child around family or friends or out in public, can have negative consequences too. So when your child or a child hears a word or phrase applied to them enough, like it sticks, they remember. This can change your child's self-image and their internal dialogue or thinking about themselves. Children tend to accept without question the labels adults use to describe their physical characteristics, personality, abilities, and limitations. So labeling a child as a picky eater or saying words like, oh, he won't eat it anyways, in front of a child only makes him or her feel as though they are incapable of loving a variety of foods or becoming a competent eater. It'll also actually grant them the permission not to explore new foods. What can drive this home even more is that if your child has a sibling who eats really well and received the label good little eater, so in a child's mind, if he is not a good eater, he must be a bad eater. So we want to encourage bravery and know that every child goes at their own pace in terms of accepting new foods. And that actually is all I have for the slides. Yeah, we can open it up for more questions or comments, discussion. Feel free to unmute or ask in the chat box as well. So I see in the chat box here, a toddler that is younger than 18 months. Is there any dietary concerns with having a diet mostly of fruit? I would also want to know what's happening with the other foods as well. But I also,
Oh yeah, I'll get off mute. Mostly just throwing it to the floor or refusing to eat it. Things that she used to like, you know, sweet potatoes, bread, not eating that anymore. Just we keep offering it, and she goes to daycare, so she gets a very big variety of food with the peer pressure of other kids. And you know, for lunch she'll have pureed fruit, and that's all she has apparently.
So are you saying that she eats very well at daycare and then maybe not as much at home?
No, still doesn't eat a lot at daycare, is still picky at daycare.
Okay.
Which I heard, I thought they were more peer pressured to try more foods at daycare because they see other kids their age eat it.
Yes, that is definitely true.
Apparently not true with mine.
I mean, we also want to look at what else she eats as well, but I get this question all the time. It's very, very common, and maybe parents here also experience this, where from when you introduced solids at 6 months to 12 months, they were eating very, very well,
Yes.
growing very well. And then all of a sudden, when they hit 12 months and beyond, they start to get more selective with their eating. And the reason behind is that as they are growing up into, you know, toddlers, they want to have control of what they want to eat. And so this is how they're exerting control, by saying no to you or eating less to have that independence and control in food. So it's very common that toddlers at this age eat a lot of fruit. I hear it all the time. Don't worry, they will be growing well, because fruit has the fiber, right? Vitamins, minerals, vitamin C, all the nutrients that they need. So don't worry. Try the tips for the vegetables as well. And for sweet potato, as you're saying, so just trying them in different textures, different formats, different flavors is what I would suggest. And also to note, if we go back or imagine the growth chart, there tends to be a slight, you can even say decrease in the growth chart. Let me see. We'll go back to it. Or I'm thinking of the other growth chart. There's a slight decrease. Anyway, so this one is plateauing. You can see the acceleration is not as, the slope is not as high. It's like gradually decreasing. And sorry, this one is 2 to 19 years old. I shouldn't refer to that. Sorry, my apologies. The other growth chart 0 from birth to 2, it actually is a plateau, like it decreases and then it increases again. So don't worry, they are, as long as they are growing on the growth chart, it's steady, it's stable, then I would say it's okay.
Any sugar concerns with, like, I know fruit is good, it's, you know, it's better than juice, it has, you know, the fibers and all that stuff, but is there any sugar concern that it's too much sugar?
In the whole fruit, you mean?
Like if they're having a diet of mostly fruit, is that too much sugar? Because we're supposed to not give them added sugar, and it's not added sugar, it's inside the fruit itself. But is that a diet of too high of sugar for such a young toddler or whatever? Can that cause negative health effects long term, maybe, if they're having a lot of sugar in the fruit, natural sugars?
No, I would not say so. Assuming they're very active,
Okay.
they're always running around.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be too concerned if they're always active. But I would definitely encourage increasing variety.
Yeah. Okay.
Possible, but yeah, it's very common that toddlers at this age eat lots of fruit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I see another question in the chat box. Let me go back to question slide. Okay, so what do you do if you've made these mistakes, pressuring your kid to eat certain foods, have to try 3 bites, etc., and labeled them as a picky eater? How do you fix that? Should we just say we are trying a new approach to eating and explain what that is? Oh, I think that's an excellent idea to do. You can always explain and communicate to them what you've learned, and say that, yes, we are trying something new and seeing if it works. And as a parent, you are the one who is, you know, in control again of rules in your house, the culture in your house, in your home. So I totally think that is okay to explain to them. Actually, if they're, I'm not sure how old your children are, but if they're at an age where they're old enough, explain to them, and so that they understand what you're doing. So I definitely encourage, if you're changing your ways of practice in feeding and they're old enough, I definitely encourage you to communicate that, explain what it is. Yeah, any other questions? Oh, I know we went over, is it a few minutes? Is that okay?
So, yeah, I think it's fine. I have one question. So I have a big kid who isn't great about trying new things, and I have a littler kid who is pretty adventurous. And so I don't know if it's a mistake that we have made a point of calling her brave or adventurous, or look at her trying these new things and doing it in front of him as, you know, hopefully a way of encouraging him to emulate that behavior that's being modeled for him. But like, is that wrong? I'm confused.
So you might be thinking it's like a comparison, like if that is okay to say in front of your other child?
Yeah. Like, am I, by pointing out what it, you know, how brave she's being, I'm, you know, inferring that he is not.
Okay. I can, yeah, see where you're coming from. Like, but we also want to encourage bravery as well, and have them think that, you know, bravery is a good thing, for example. And so maybe some of the tips is to ask them, like, for example, for your less adventurous child, maybe ask them some questions instead of kind of yeah. So I would kind of go a little deeper, ask them what makes it maybe less interesting to them. What can I do to make it more interesting and yummy for them? Yeah, so I would just kind of, yeah, try and talk to them about what makes it tastier. Yeah.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any other questions? We'll maybe try to wrap it up. We are over time, but if we have other questions. Vanya, are you available via email if anybody has any other follow-up questions, or they can submit via the forum maybe?
Yeah, so I would say if you gather all the questions, that would be helpful. So then I can kind of sift through if questions are similar or if they're different. I'm able to share resources as well, if that helps.
So I'll jump in. I'm Karen, and I'm the one who coordinated this with Vanya. So thank you so much, Vanya, for this talk. I put my email address in the chat. So if you guys have any follow-up questions, I can sort of compile them and then send them off to Vanya, so that she can maybe, you know, as she said, compile them and figure out who has the same questions. The other thing I was going to say is that if you are, I know in the Blake community, and I'm hoping also in the Franklin and in the PAPE community as well, we're going to try and do a food challenge. We're hoping for next week, but it kind of depends on stay at home and that type of thing. So yeah. So that's something we're going to do. Right now we're working it out with the Eastview that perhaps people can sign up and go and pick up a couple of sweet potatoes, and then we're going to deliver you guys a couple of recipes. And if you can take some photos of the creative recipe you do with your sweet potato, and then we'll have some sort of prize. As you can still see, we're still working out the details because everything changes every time I turn around with the government, what we're allowed to do and what we are not allowed to do. So, but that's the idea. Okay, so if I have any members here from the PAPE community or the Franklin community, you can certainly reach out to your school council chair about that. All right, and I did have one question in the chat, Vanya, if somebody could contact you for an individual session. Is that something you would do, or would you know somebody who could do that?
So if you live in our like catchment area, which I think most of you do, yes. So what I usually require is a referral form completed by your doctor, and the reason being is a liability from our part. So yes, I do have like a electronic referral form that I can email to Karen. So I can definitely share that. But if you are outside our catchment area, there are different community health centers that have dietitians and will speak with you regarding like your child's nutrition. So if you are interested in a dietitian appointment and you're outside of our catchment area, you can let me know whereabouts you live and I can direct you or point you to the right place. I also have colleagues that have their own private practice. And if you have insurance coverage, I do have a recommendation for that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Lisa, yeah, you raised your hand, and I do see your chat.
What do you want to say?
I want to say about the competition.
Oh, the eating the food competition?
At the end, do you win anything?
Of course, it's not much of a competition if you don't win something. Absolutely. Are you going to try it out? Are you going to cook something yummy with a sweet potato?
Well,
I hope so. I've already been looking for some good recipes that I'm going to share, but you guys can cook whatever you like and show us something awesome.
And sorry, is there, I've been on and off, obviously. Is this recording gonna be somewhere? I think I heard.
Yes, so the recording will go out in the newsletter, the Blake newsletter on Friday, and I will pass it along to the other council chairs so that they can get it to you via their social media and newsletters as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure. All right. Thank you so much, Vanya. I really do appreciate your help on this one. Okay.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It was great coordinating it with you, and I think that from what I see in the chat, people had really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad. This one, yeah, definitely. This topic is very, very, very common, I assure you. And I talk about Ellen Satter in all of the clients that I see.
I'm glad. Well, I'm glad people enjoyed it. So yes, we will